Good morning,
viewers, and welcome to Midweek Edition
of the Economy and Politics Show. Today, November 18, 2020. We discuss developments around the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which have been described across the world as the key drivers of the economy. Today, we'll continue our second part of assessment of the micro, small, and medium enterprise support post-October 2020 violence in Nigeria. This followed the EndSARS protests that sought reforms in the Nigerian police force. That violence, or you can call it carnage, had wider impact on Nigerian businesses, from Lagos to Calabar to the east in Anambra State. Businesses were looted and affected adversely. The federal government and some state governments have been carrying out measures to see how they can support these businesses to get back on feet and drive their activities. We need to lead this conversation and look at how this response to the challenges of the MSMEs post-violence has occurred is Mr. Ayo Bankole Akintujoye. He is the convener of Lagos SME Bootcamp. Good morning to you, Mr. Ayo. Yes, nice to have you. I know it's been a really
challenging period for businesses that were affected by this carnage. It was unprecedented in terms of the impact, particularly Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital. But let's look at the response to this incident. How do you assess the federal government and some of the state government's responses? I can say that Oyo State and Kwara rolled out 500 million naira each to see how they can support businesses. The federal government has been looking at various ways, particularly to the Youth Investment Fund, the 75 billion naira fund that has 25 billion per year for the next 3 years, and various other ways to see how they can support businesses. Some of the banks also have come out to roll out some special measures for the businesses. But overall, how do you assess the response to these businesses that have been affected? Mr. Ayo, can you hear me?
Okay, so I would say that the response of Lagos seems to be the most timely and yeah, I can hear you clearly. I don't know if you can hear me.
Go on. Yes, you can go on. Yes. You can go on. Yeah. Mr. Ayo, can you hear me? You can go on.
Okay, so I would say that the response of the Lagos state government, seems to be the most credible because of the LSTF. Government Trust Fund has been championing quite a bit of initiatives for youth employment, SME sector growth and all of that. This sort of added credibility to the efforts of Lagos state government. And a lot of people, a lot of SMEs within our cluster, outside of cluster and all of that, responded very positively to the call by LSTF for SMEs who were affected to apply. It provided about 2.5 billion thereabouts, right, for the affected businesses. And I understand that about 2,500 business owners have already applied for that. So I think that Lagos would expect that because they were the most affected, and naturally, Lagos economy is way bigger than anybody else. So you wouldn't expect other states to provide as much support as Lagos will. But that's on one end. Now, for the other states, Kwara or your, I think that I can't remember which of the states now. One of the states in the north also provided support. I think Kano or something have also provided support, which is good. However, I always have issues with implementation. The implementation of it and that's why I said Lagos State's own of Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. So I would therefore expect that other states would engage, the private sector, like a hybrid of the private sector and professionals and the government to execute. Because there really is no point if you are going to set aside certain funds, $500 million, to help businesses, and at the end of the day, maybe only less than 20 million gets to them, the rest goes into private pockets. There really is no point. We saw what happened with COVID palliative.
Yeah.
I was on this show numerous times analyzing government support for COVID, not knowing that most of these supports were ending in warehouses and people's private pockets for their birthdays. So I think implementation is the most important. But so far so good. I would say that response has been fair.
Okay. Mr. Ayo, just like today now, this morning, the Lagos State, like you rightly said, the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund has been one initiative that has really helped to support businesses and entrepreneurs. And today, in response to the pandemic and the challenges it has brought to small businesses, by 10 a.m. in Ikeja, the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund is launching the Lagos Economic Acceleration Program, LEAP, designed to identify sectors with high impact towards jobs and wealth creation. These are sectors that can be supported, MSMEs, and the theme is from pandemic to prosperity. Like we had a pre-discussion even yesterday. There's also a plan to roll out a seed capital of about 1 billion naira to identify areas like tourism, areas like hospitality, areas like entertainment, various industries. Is this the line that state governments should follow in terms of cascading all these interventions or responses, particularly to those that were affected by the violence and even the pandemic, to put it into a program and not just rolling out as response interventions? What's your thought about this LEAP approach from the LSTF?
Yes, you see, the outcome or the output of what LSTF has been doing or has chosen to do for this specific crisis, reflects the type of individuals that, or the mix of the skill sets, the talents, and the outlook of the individuals that sit, on that forum, right? So you wouldn't expect anything less. And I totally agree with you that this is the approach that governments need to be taking with regards to all of these interventions. Break your interventions down into clusters, into strategic themes. Focus portions of your funds along those themes. If you're going to be interacting with the MSMEs, right, or if you're going to be providing interventions to MSMEs, demystify MSMEs. So, for example, the top 5 economic sectors that the MSMEs play in, right, is wholesale and retail. 42% of MSMEs are in the wholesale space, wholesale/retail space. All the guys on the street, selling stuff, your supermarkets and all that. And then we have 20.9% of them, in agriculture, manufacturing, accommodation and food services. So you can, for example, use these buckets where the largest chunk of them are in, as focus clusters that you then use to penetrate or to execute your intervention. The way Lagos State government is doing. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to provide so money to government to MSMEs, and then there is no specific approach. Then bring together your same old government people, and they go out, trying to identify the guys who were most impacted, and even the process of the due diligence is not thorough enough. So at the end of the day, the guys who really need it may not benefit. But if you break it down into clusters like this, or if you zero in on specific sectors, right, and design unique initiatives that you want to use the money for to promote certain things in those sectors, you will definitely get more results, because you will be able to do more focused sector focused interventions. You'll be able to accommodate the subject matter experts in those specific environments to help you identify those who are most impacted, and also help you assess your impact post intervention, right? Again, as I said earlier, I think it's a fantastic initiative by Lagos State, and I think that other states should follow, not just for this, but for similar interventions in the future.
Now, Mr. Ayo, also, this will definitely impact
of
the
MSMEs to the economy this year. We've battled with COVID already, and then this violence. And like you know, MSMEs contribute over 50% to the economy's GDP. So definitely, what from your assessment, how would this really impact the MSMEs contribution? World Bank already talked about the fact that MSMEs even in Africa will be challenged with the issues of the pandemic. Now add up this whole development, this whole carnage and violence in over 18 states of the Federation during that period. What should we be looking out for?
Okay, well, to be fair, and this is not trying to underestimate what happened or to say or to make it less important. However, see I do not see how that carnage, maybe the NSAS protest as a whole, or the NSAS lockdown, the way shut down activities as a whole may have impacted. But for the violence that that was an aftermath of it, I don't think that those businesses that were impacted in their volumes are significant enough to cause a major dip in GDP sector contribution because um, I mean, look, we have 41 million MSMEs in Nigeria, contributing to economic activity. I don't think that those that were impacted are even up to 5,000, or if at all, right? So I don't think that in terms of their volume and in terms of their impact on the overall scheme of things, I don't think it's going to impact significantly the contribution of MSME sector to GDP growth. However, is a major issue that of course, impacted the revenue streams of those guys who are involved, would have impacted jobs, right? I know a couple of people who lost their jobs just across the road from me here. A whole shopping complex was burned, right? Was razed down, and you can imagine how many jobs would have been lost in that environment. So again, because we are not so much of a huge data country, it will be difficult for us to gather the data with regards to what's the total value, what's the total, and you can see government has been coming up with all sort of funny figures, bogus figures. I don't believe all of those things. I think proper due diligence, proper study should be done to assess the impact, the economic impact from an employment standpoint, from an asset loss standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, so that we can better appreciate. But with regards to contribution to the GDP, I don't think it's going to make that much of significant impact.
Okay, now Ayo, in terms of the
compensations or ways of helping these businesses, like you rightly said, some shopping complex. I mean, at Denver, Ogunsanya, the ShopRite and all the business adjoining there were affected. People were lamenting. That other parts of Lagos also were affected in this carnage. Akwa Ibom State, several people cried. I mean, they looted their shops. Some took loans for it. Same in Cross River State. Same even down to Plateau and even parts of Kaduna State. So there was this thought round, should we have a kind of 70 billion naira intervention, maybe federal government and the central bank and state governments agree, and then we take, like you now said, the issue of data is very important. All the states collate businesses, and this is where SMEDAN comes in, the Small Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria. I mean, how do we compensate these people who are affected adversely by this? I mean, is there no thought around that? Isn't that approach something that can really help? Because if these businesses don't get some so-called support, they will really feel hard on, and looking to next year could be a challenge for them.
Okay, so let's look at this critically, right? Again, yeah, we should support. I mean, we have to support, but you see, this throwing money at everything is always an issue. You can't keep throwing money at every problem, right? Without addressing the root cause of those challenges, right? Now, we have businesses who have lost assets, who have lost their means of livelihood, right? And then, you are throwing money at them. Yes, they would need money to recover, but it can't just be only money, right? What are the key issues that should even make that led to such uprising, right? What are the unemployment issues that make our economy that vulnerable to massive attacks by young people, who we have come to regard as hoodlums, right? What is the trust deficit? How can we solve that trust deficit between the government and these people, such that when peaceful protests, and it is important that I clarify here that the end self protests were peaceful. It started peaceful and ended peaceful. Now, the aftermath that led to this looting and these attacks were done by individuals that till tomorrow have yet to be arrested by government, while the people who protested peacefully are being um, headhunted left and right. So whoever was behind or that motivated such attacks, whatever led to it, need to be interrogated and need to be fixed so that we don't have a repeat of it. Now, in addition to providing funds, going back to the support to these guys, in addition to providing funds, we also need to look at the entire MSME ecosystem. Why should, for example, an MSME face hazard and not have insurance that can adequately immediately come into play, right? Why should there not be sufficient social infrastructure or social wealth safety nets that can immediately take care of whoever lost property or whoever was wounded? I don't know if you're getting me. I mean, immediately
Yes,
you
I
go
get
into
you.
unemployment, there should be unemployment benefits. So we need to look at these things holistically, because look at during COVID too, there were a lot of interventions by the CBN. Every day you hear CBN, you hear government, you hear Ministry of Social Welfare. They keep coming up with all sort of interventions. The impact, and I keep saying it every day. I just said it, some time ago when I was on another TV station, that look, the impact assessment of all of these initiatives is more important than initiatives by themselves. So if you do not engage credible third party institutions to help you measure this impact, and the result of this initiative, you may just have been wasting taxpayer resources. So, in as much as I agree with you that we need to do more on this intervention, it is even more important that we look at it holistically and not just throwing funds, at every problem at every point in time, without even measuring the impact of the fund.
I get your point.
The issue of addressing the structural issues, which is very important, and social safety nets and even insurance measures. Those are things that have to be taken going forward. But you agree with me, Mr. Yo, that when you look at the businesses that have been affected, I mean, when you look at several people who even engaged, source of livelihood, people that were even supporting other subsectors have been really affected. And every effort to support them coming back up is very critical at this time, because these are people that were doing legitimate business and they were adversely affected by this carnage. But let's look at the current initiatives. I know that you've always said that there are so many, but we should be able to coalesce them and coordinate them. Let's take a look at the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund. You are the coordinator or convener of the Lagos SME Bootcamp. Young people, young entrepreneurs are also in that network. Have they been able to assess this NYF, 75 billion naira, which is cut into 3 years? So far, what are the feelers you're getting in terms of assessing this fund? Because this is one of the ways to put trust, believability in all these initiatives.
Was funded by the CBN, but I think it's also important that we know that it was launched by Ministry of Youth and Sports Development.
Yes.
As you said. So because people mix it up with the interventions done by the Ministry of what was that ministry called? Social Welfare or something. And CBN Intervention Fund, exactly. So in as much as it was funded by the CBN, it was a scheme by the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport Development. I personally do not know anyone who has benefited from this. We want to start. We want to formally start a process by which we support people. We look thoroughly at the qualification requirements and identify people within our community that we can help provide pro bono support services to help them apply. We haven't started, but usually I get a lot of correspondence from MSMEs to say, oh, I applied for this. These are the issues I have. What can I do? But on this, I'm yet to meet with anyone who has benefited. I mean, anyone watching this and has benefited or is applied or in the process of applying, please reach out to me so that we can have conversations that will provide data that can feed the implementation of the policy.
Yeah. And the Minister of State for Industries, Trade and Investment talked about the fact that even in the disbursements, women-owned businesses will receive much more preference in terms of encouraging women entrepreneurs. And this is part of the things that have been discussed over time, the gender inclusion in economic activities in the country. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, it's very important that they're empowered.
No, I totally support that. Within the MSME space, women constitute, I can't remember the data now, but women constitute a large chunk of those who play in that sector, right? And again, you also know that women are primary caregivers and are responsible for the upbringing of a lot of young people, right? So naturally, I think that more such initiatives should have to specially take cognizance of that fact, because the truth is, if you don't, you may unconsciously be suffering. So, for example, if you have a sector where more women are participants, and then you do not take that into consideration when you are implementing certain initiatives, and then you end up with more men being being beneficiaries, or even a balance, equal balance, you wouldn't have done justice, right? So, in as much as we know that more women participate in economic activity, especially in the micro and small level, then we have to constantly make provision for that. So I think it's a laudable initiative. And I think that the government even needs to have more of such initiatives specifically designed for women in the MSME space or young women making impact. Because there's a lot of challenges that women have that men do not have. Ours is still a very largely patriarchal society. And we have to be very deliberate and very conscious in breaking all of those patriarchal institutions or all of those barriers. One of it, of course, being finance, funding, right? If you provide money to them specially, right, you can't say it's going to be an even playing field for such, because the current social strata is not even. So you can't. So you have to make it. You have to provide special allocation for women. So I think it's a good step. It's a step in the right direction, and I encourage every other government agency to adopt that approach.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with you. When you look at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, what they do, they really give a lot of provision, considerations to women-owned businesses. Even Uganda and Rwanda are top in Africa when it comes to supporting women businesses. So definitely, this is a good step, and Nigeria needs to really do more to support our women entrepreneurs. Now, let's look at the years wrapping up, and we're into 2021. The biggest story everybody's watching across Europe, second wave of COVID-19, lockdowns already in the UK. Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday said in order to manage their funds, they may have to cut overseas spending. So all those UK assistance, particularly to support MSMEs, even in emerging markets or economies, yes, the FIDs may be affected. Also, we're seeing state closures in US and even other major economies in Europe. Now, for Africa and other emerging economies, they have to navigate, they have to strategize. We have to find our own ways to scale through this phase, because this second wave will have its own impact on our economy. As a convener of this laudable bootcamp, what will you be advising MSMEs this period? I mean, it's been a challenging year. We've had our own fair share. The pandemic and this carnage have affected some good percentage of our businesses in the country. How can they navigate this challenging terrain? with the economic issues we face in the country?
We've spoken so much about this that we hope that it's going to go away, but unfortunately, this second wave now is even more scarier than the first. France is already on lockdown, as you said, UK, and but somehow, I don't know, Africa seems to have gotten a hang of it, or at least at this point, it's not it's not on the front burner for African countries. We can only hope that it remains so until the vaccine, comes out. The vaccine is a major pointer, is a major way of hope. But again, let's look a little bit away from Europe. You would also know that other things may also impact African economy. One of it being the U.S. election, right?
Yeah.
You know that Donald Trump hasn't been the most friendly, president to Africa. As a matter of fact, he ignored Africa completely for 4 years. He never visited. He never actively had engagements with Africa. So hopefully, of course, naturally, the Democratic Party has more active interventions or engagements with Africa. If that happens, that may balance out whatever reductions in support that happen from Europe. But again, America also has its own challenges on COVID, so we can't be too optimistic. But again, at the minimum, it should be better than what we had under Trump. Now, having said that, MSMEs at this moment have to cut every unnecessary cost. Every unnecessary cost. This is not the time for all those owambes. This is not the time for a lot of gifts in December. This is not your regular dirty December, right? You have to streamline every aspect of your business. You have to outsource if necessary. Just recently, one of the SMEs in our community was talking to me about how he invested, like backward integration into logistics business during the shortly after the lockdown, and then he then suddenly realized that the logistics business came with his own headache all together, like a completely new set of headache that is now distracting from the core business. And these are some of the issues, right? MSMEs need to understand the principle of how to make use of sourcing. If it is not your core business, except you totally have to do it, maybe to diversify, there's rarely any need to go into such businesses just because it's an input into your process, right? If you have efficient channels that can do it for you, it can be more effective, it can be more efficient. You can focus on your core business and streamline your costs. So all those additional costs that will come with owning some of these additional processes do not occur, right? It's also important at this point in time that you look at how. It's also important that you look at how your business can improve on operational efficiency. So if I'm currently producing or if I'm currently selling at X price, right? How can you negotiate ahead, with your suppliers? How can you negotiate ahead with parties that you interact with, right? How can I institute efficient budgeting process so that I'm not spending more than I'm making, and so that if I see or if I forecast that my income is most likely going to dip, then I implement corresponding reductions in expense. So all of those elements, are many more, tech adoption and all that are are some of the things that MSMEs need to start taking into consideration at this critical moment. Yeah.
So Ayo Bankole, it's been really nice having this conversation with you on how the response to the challenges MSMEs has faced this year, especially the unprecedented violence that followed the NSAS protest across the country, how they should be supported. Particularly a big takeaway is that we should be sector specific. We should look at critical sectors that can drive growth and economic opportunities in the country in our support. You agree also that there should be support to all these businesses that have been affected, but going forward, the structural issues should be addressed, and also that there is need to ensure that all those social safety nets, insurance provisions are made for them. Also, for the second wave of the COVID, we should be very conscious, MSMEs should be conscious and address the issues that will affect them in terms of cutting down costs and taking other innovative measures to move forward. It's been interesting having this conversation with you on the Economy and Politics Show. Hope to have you for tomorrow's edition. You can join our website, www.prochange.com, to watch our videos, do the news reports and analysis. It was nice having Mr. Ayo Bankole, convener of Lagos SME Bootcamp program, and we hope to have him subsequently discussing developments around the micro, small and medium enterprises. To come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.